It has been many years since the world has seen or heard from the man once called the greatest talent of his generation. Johnny Diamond's movies and music has delighted the eyes and ears of so many. His disappearance from the public eye has been one of the tragic losses in our time. The sound of Johnny's voice has been synonymous with superstardom, but that wonderful sound has long since been silenced by corruption, greed, and one man's obsession to destroy a legend. Johnny Diamonds was born Jonathan Wayne Diamonds in a small sharecropper's shack outside of Elko, Nevada. Johnny grew up loving music and singing in his local church. His father, Joe Diamonds, farmed potatoes while raising Johnny and his twin brother, Jimmy Diamonds. Tragically, Jimmy succumbed to valley fever shortly before Johnny's first birthday.
I miss my brother so much. After little Jimmy died, me and Papa became real close. We only had each other, but we made it enough.
Life was hard for the Diamonds family. Papa Joe found himself working as a farmer, a logger, a miner, a fisherman, and a blacksmith. Yet still, he was barely able to make ends meet. At the age of 15, Johnny struck out on his own to follow a dream in Reno. Phil Steve, a local music producer, who had recently found success with hit records by The Band That Time Forgot, The New Sweets, and the Joel Brothers, had agreed to give Johnny an audition. Phil recognized Johnny's talents right away and immediately signed him to a lifelong contract, and formed the band The Precious Stones with Johnny Diamonds as the frontman.
Man, when I first heard Phil Steve's music on the radio, I was blown away. He had that sound, man. He had that sound. He was doing it like no one else was doing it.
Johnny Diamonds and Phil Steve made 35 records and sold millions of copies, making Johnny the biggest star in the music world.
The only thing that could have made Johnny more famous than his music was his movies.
Diamond's movie career began with the marriage of his close childhood friend, Brigham Barrett. Barrett was a big film buff, so Johnny hired a crew to shoot a film at his bachelor party. They ended up calling the film Bachelor Blues.
Well, Bachelor Blues took the world by storm. Everyone saw it. Broke box office records everywhere. Held the #1 spot for 18 weeks. Johnny was the world's first megastar. Couldn't go anywhere without people swarming him. It was nuts. Loco.
Johnny had so much fun making Bachelor Blues that he started a film company and named it Bachelor Buddies Productions. Over the next decade, BBP produced 29 motion pictures.
These movies were getting downright silly. All those bikini girls bouncing around Johnny. Titles like Lobster Bisque and Mazatlan, maybe. I should know, I've lived 14 of them. Phil Steve was phoning it in, and the public noticed. Johnny was still a huge star. But those budgets were getting so inflated, it was impossible to make a profit.
Phil Steve was a liar. I never saw him produce anything. He got everyone else to do all the work and then took all the credit for himself. He did it with music, and then he did it with movies.
He had interns doing everything. He'd hire super talented people, work them into the ground, steal their ideas, fire them. The budgets on these movies were huge. Loco. None of that money ever made it to the set.
Phil Steve was going crazy. He'd overspent and undersold his last 5 pictures. He resented Johnny for his inherent goodness and boyish charm. Phil Steve Enterprises owned 51.5% of Johnny's contracts and held the copyrights to all Johnny Diamond's music and film archive. He could use Johnny's likeness any way he wanted, and he did. There were Johnny Diamond's pictures on everything, but he never paid Johnny for that. He was out to destroy Johnny's career. The last 5 of Johnny's movies were never even released to the public. Phil Steve shelved them.
The last film I worked on, The Golden Bazooki, was really gonna put us back on top again. We had top-notch people working on it, man. It was the best work I'd ever done, personally. Employing all these local actors and crew, well, they really made us feel like we were back home. And then it all fell apart.
Phil Steve's house of cards had crumbled. His companies had all gone bankrupt. He sold Bachelor Buddies and Phil Steve Enterprises to J.B. Graybill and J.P. Beaumont, two Wall Street investment bankers who had financed Johnny's films in the past. The sale included the entire back catalog of Johnny's films and music.
Graybill and Beaumont liquidated the entire company, sold off all the assets. But the joke was on them because of Phil Steve's cheapness and one huge mistake.
Phil Steve never spent money he didn't have to. After a movie had left the theaters, he used to recycle the film stock to get the silver back out of the nitrate.
Phil had Johnny's entire back catalog of movies and music stored at this real cheap storage place out in Crescent Valley, Nevada. Well, it turns out the reason it was so cheap is because they also stored the nuclear waste from the power plant in Valmy. All the film and tape had been irradiated and damaged beyond repair. When Graybill and Beaumont showed up to collect their property, it had all turned to dust.
When I heard about the Crescent Valley storage scandal, I became very depressed. That was my whole life's work, all gone. I retreated back to the mountains. I've been up here ever since, collecting antique Japanese swords and just meditating. It took me a long time to get over the shock. I mean, no one even ever saw the last picture I made, the Golden Bazooki. But it seems like maybe all that's about to change, if what you're telling me is true.
Recently, an ex-intern of Phil Steve Enterprises has come forward, claiming to have a copy of the Golden Bazooki.
I was the lead intern on the Golden Bazooki, which on a crew made up entirely of interns meant that I was responsible for the day-to-day running of the set, the pre-production and the post-production. Phil Steve technically was the director on this picture, though more often than not he wasn't on set. And when he was typically on his phone or unavailable in his trailer. So, while in my heart I believe and know that I did direct this film, I'm contractually obligated to tell you that I didn't. Now, Phil Steve had me editing from home to save cost, and I had brought home all of the footage from the Golden Bazooki to inspect. And while I had it, Phil sold the company, and a week later we were all fired. Now, I tried to return the film to them, however, they wouldn't even return my calls. So after a couple of months I gave up, and I decided to sit on it. Now, after I heard about the Crescent Valley storage scandal and Johnny's subsequent reclusion, I felt it was my duty to restore the Golden Bazooki and eventually to release it. He had always been so kind to me on set, and he was really a good friend and a big help to me, especially at the beginning of my career as an intern. I was Phil Steve's intern for 12 years. So I was not surprised when I heard about what happened to him, but I know it shocked the world.
Phil Steve got way too deep into the world of Kumite. He was producing live Kumite events from an island offshore, off the coast of Myanmar. His left-away champion was undefeated. His biggest mistake was bringing that mess to the U.S.
It was supposed to be the biggest martial arts event in history. First ever American Kumite. Phil Steve brought fighters in from all over. Was doing closed circuit TV out to the world. Gambling was insane. Loco.
The Nevada State Athletic Commission sent 2 agents to investigate a claim that an unsanctioned combat sporting event was taking place at an abandoned roller rink outside of Reno.
When that Kumite got raided, it was the end of the line for Phil Steve. He had smuggled in fighters from 22 different countries, and he had never bothered to take them through customs. So he got popped for human trafficking. Now he's doing 25 years up at Eli State Prison in Nevada. He tried to hold off the police by taking a hostage, but she disarmed him and subdued him until the police could intervene.
In 2020, the Attorney General of Nevada overturned an earlier decision nullifying Phil Steve's contract with Johnny Diamonds, returning the ownership of the movie and music rights back to its former owner, Johnny Diamonds.
Recently, when I finished work on the Golden Bouzouki, I wrote to Johnny. We had remained pen pals over the last 10 years, though sometimes his responses take months or even years. In my letter to him, I asked if he wanted to watch the finished film. He hesitated at first, but after the courts gave him back control of his career, he called me and invited me to Diamond Ranch Villa, where the two of us watched the Golden Bouzouki in his private theater. Great place. I think it ignited a spark which rekindled an old fire. He seemed really excited, and so I asked him the question that had been burning in my mind for so long. Johnny, will you come out of retirement?
What I want the people to know is I'm coming back. After I watched the Golden Bouzouki, after all these years, man, it made me feel young again, and it gave me hope for the future. So I thought, why not share this gift with the world? Now that I control my own career, I think it's the perfect time for me to return to the stage.
It's been 10 years of hard work trying to restore this film, not without its pitfalls and trials and tribulations. But I know it'll all be worth it when the world gets to see Johnny Diamonds on the stage and screen once again.
I'm going to release the Golden Bouzouki in theaters with the help of Ancient Artifact Studios, and I'm even going to perform on stage after the movie. I'm very excited to bring this gift to the public and all my fans, and I think it's high time the world remembered Johnny Diamonds.
This has been your host, Professor Durango Conway.